You don't, when you come up with your budget, you don't need me, just pass it. We don't need to go through the whole budget season.
Okay.
This is a checks and balances kind of.
But again, something that.
Okay, hold on, guys, hold on,
This
guys.
wasn't on tonight's agenda.
No,
And you're letting us get out of control.
the only
This is
thing on
not
the agenda
appropriate
tonight was with the two mechanics, was what they do, all right, just stay calm. Johnny assumed that he was going, that you had only 4 oil changes a year. Unless he knew that you did an oil change every single month, there was nothing he could do with that, all right? So you had numbers, John has numbers. All right, John, let's go back to what you're going to talk to us about. It was about, well, it says, provided, the services provided by the Department of Public Works mechanic, okay? All right, and you have the fire department up here. We have a lot of men here tonight from the fire department. I do not have anything on here that just says fire department, just general. Services provided by the Public Works mechanic. Now, if that's going to include the fire department, I need you to let us know exactly what you're going to be doing for the fire department. And just assume what you would have to do. If you can't do that now, you're just telling us that you do 5 oil changes a year for, not 5, 12 a year for the police department. You do that for every borough vehicle, oil changes?
Police cars are done once a month.
Okay, police cars once a month, okay?
And trucks are done 4 times a year.
And trucks 4 times a year. Okay, all right. Now, everybody clear on that? Okay. What type of a service would you be providing for the fire department? What would your mechanics be doing for the fire department?
They're going to provide the same service that an outside vendor provides.
Which is?
And that's vehicle maintenance, preventative maintenance, breakdowns, brakes, tires, electrical issues, bumper to bumper.
So then it would not be required for any of the fire trucks to go out to the Roscon. Is that right? You would be doing everything?
One truck would be going to Roscon still, and that's the ladder truck due to its just tremendous amount of electrical and hydraulic.
Okay. Okay, I have a few more questions, but I'm going to just let the council ask whatever they have on their mind. All right, I know Alphonse had his hand up before, so Alphonse, you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, it's passed to a certain extent. You were going back and forth with numbers. I don't know about the rest of the council. I haven't seen any of the numbers. So add a bit of a disservice when you're talking about numbers I don't have them, just so everybody is clear. I haven't seen any numbers.
Nobody
but beyond
has
that,
numbers.
no, I know. Beyond that, just for clarification, you're not working on the, this is just preventive maintenance. It's nothing to do with pumps because you're not, none of your guys are certified in that.
Any type of pump packing would still be sent out.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear about that. That's still going to go out.
But again, this is still going back to my original statement that I could do this with 2 full-time mechanics. In 2009, the fire department spent $9,908 for labor. In 2010, it was $11,043 for labor. That works out to be $108 for 2009, $112 per hour for 2010. The parts for 2009 was $6,500 and change. The parts for 2010 was $5,800 and change. If my mechanics did it at $35 an hour, it would have been $3,185 for labor for 2009 and $3,400 for labor in 2010, a savings of $14,336. Then you have environmental supplies that they bill you for, which is on average about $200 a year, which would be savings also. We would still obviously have to purchase the parts, tires, all that other stuff, but we're just talking about labor.
Okay. All right, John?
I think we have to make a decision whether we're looking at these 2 mechanic positions.
Well, that's what I want to do.
So we should.
Excuse me.
That's what I'm trying to get the council to agree on, is we have to look at these 2 and decide whether we want to price this out or not. If we do want to price it out, then I think we need John to provide us with each vehicle that he services and the type of preventative maintenance that he does.
I'm ready
And
to talk
then-
about it tonight.
Right, if we can get that list, then we can price that out, and then we can make a concise decision on whether it's fiscally right to have 2 mechanics in-house, or to have 1 mechanic and contract someone this out. But without that detail, we're not gonna get a good price outside, and we're not gonna be able to make a clear decision. And that's what I think we need. So we have to decide as a council. I think that we should price this out. I'll put my opinion out there. I think we should. It's something that we should definitely price out. We've priced out other things, and I think this is another thing that we
Well,
should just
again,
make sure that we're doing the right thing.
Again, Mayor, that brings me back to, is this gonna be a layoff or a demotion?
Well,
Because if we're looking at eliminating another one of my people, okay? We're talking 12 months out of the year that I have to worry about. My phone rings. I don't know about you guys.
But
But
John, go ahead.
Can I please, Mayor?
Go ahead, finish.
You eliminate one guy, let's say you eliminate the mechanic, which you can't, because when you lay him off, you don't lay off the mechanic, because I have a contract to deal with, we have a borough policy to deal with. So the mechanic doesn't get laid off, the lowest labor gets laid off. And then you have the mechanic getting paid $73,000 as a laborer, because this is unprecedented charter waters. This is gonna go to court, it's gonna be labor attorneys. You're talking about a whole nother issue. So now I lose another guy, I lose 80 hours for leaf cleanup and overtime. I lose 100 hours for snow overtime. Now I have 1 mechanic, I lose 152 hours for vacation time. When he's out, I don't have a mechanic. When he's out on sick, 96 hours, I have 1 mechanic, not 2 mechanics. In the middle of a snowstorm, I got trucks breaking down, the mechanics not in, I have no mechanic. I have no flexibility. This is not oil changes and Jiffy Lube. I'm running a shop. I'm running a business.
I know, but there has been no decision made to lay anybody off with mechanics. They just, the council would just like to know what the costs are, that's all. Now, you just went over a whole lot of things here. Can you provide that in writing to this council, to the council here? I know a lot of them are, it is not an easy thing. You have to run a very, very tight ship. I know you're very, very low on manpower, and I know that you do a lot of work. And yet, you may be taking on the fire department and doing their truck maintenance and so on, which you haven't been doing on a regular basis now. I know these trucks have been going out, all right, because you just gave us the numbers on that, all right? So, we just need to have, the council needs to know that. I mean, they are not saying anybody is getting laid off. I mean, I know everybody is a nervous wreck thinking that that's the case, but doesn't necessarily mean it is the case.
I've heard many times in this courtroom on tape about
I know,
an employee being laid off.
I know, I know. I know you're down men too. Okay, we have John who has a question, and then Paul.
I just want to go on record. I mean, this is, I don't know if this is a one-man crusade, but it's certainly one man leading the charge. I don't know where the rest of the council stands on this. I think this is a large waste of your time.
Certainly is.
And to put you through all of this, you've got enough to do. Just the fact that the numbers just right there bear out at $112 and $108 an hour is what we've paid outside mechanics. And our mechanics $35. Throw in benefits, throw in a couple of things. He's $50 an hour. We're paying $112 outside. If someone else can, without wasting a lot of time, we can kind of see if this exercise is worth it. If someone wants to give us a bid that they're going to do all our work for $50 an hour, then it's worth it. But right now we're at 100, and, our data is showing us 112. But if someone wants to come through and say, I can service your vehicles and I'll charge you $50 an hour plus parts, then we have something to talk about. Until then, I think it's putting you through, a lot of work. I don't think this is going to save us any money. I have employees I pay $35 an hour. When I have to hire someone else, I pay $60 an hour for those same guys that I pay my guys $30 an hour for, because he's got insurance, overhead, profit, and all those other things. So, and also to lose that mechanic who's also spending 40% of his time doing other stuff too, would be a real disservice to the
Well,
town.
I'm
So
not counting
Okay,
trucks.
well,
That's my
thank you.
opinion, thank you.
Thank you, John. And as you said, you have to have apples to apples, not apples to oranges or apples to bananas or whatever else. We still need to have the comparison. But thank you, John. Okay, Paul?
Yeah, John and I have been talking about this for the past couple of weeks, just numbers on the liaison to the DPW, and I have to agree with, listen, I trust John with those numbers, and I understand Councilman Porco's, and that, we have to see the numbers up front, and we have to make our judgment on it. DPW is very close to what my business is. Same type of numbers, same type of materials, same type of employee numbers. So I do understand, where John's coming from. That's why when I talk to you, I say, John, you got to run this thing like it's your business. And I think you've been doing that. Councilman Cannon's right. I mean, we can't waste our time on small things like this. This is getting out of hand. But as a council, we do need to know the numbers. From everybody. I do appreciate John for going over the numbers and stuff and trying to balance them, but I think we're kind of going down a dead end because we're leaving out the major factor that it's not just about oil change. It's not just about, it's about the whole job. When the winter time comes around, we need those mechanics for other positions, and I think that's what we're missing. And I don't think that, again, tonight, I think if you open up to the council, you probably find, I'm not going to say anything for anybody else, you find that most people would be on your side with this. It's a very time-consuming thing that you're doing here. And I think as a councilman, John Porco is asking for the comparison numbers. Now, on my end, I know what the numbers are. And we talked about the numbers, and I have to agree with you. I mean, it's kind of, what are we doing here? I mean, are we going to waste time here, or are we going to go forward and get this thing straightened out? I think the real numbers have to come out that, listen, John, we sit down there, we go over the numbers, we find out what you're really running at, and I have to trust you with this stuff. As far as other department heads, I think they're all different. It's all different as far as everyone running their own business. We trust most of the...
I tell you, I'm a man of my word. You find something else, you get rid of me. That's plain simple. I stand by what I say. If it was cheaper, there was a better way of doing it, I'd be doing it.
I know we had that conversation, and listen, if I had a foreman running my company, I have to say, I have to trust him that, and I'm watching the numbers. I can't, I'm not gonna, I will look at on the outside and look at other areas where we can cut money, but I have to go back to you and say, can we cut money here? And what John's doing is fair. He's just watching out for the town and saying, okay, can we do this? And that's all it is can we do this? In our conversation, we know where we stand with that. But I have to respect John for what he's doing as far as a councilman to the town, going out and saying, can we do this? And that's basically what the question comes down to. Is it a waste of time? Listen, nothing's a waste of time up here. I mean, the town voters to be here to do something. If we have to look at these numbers in depth, then we look at them. What's the difference? A couple of extra weeks, put the numbers together, we get the numbers together, we're done. And we go from there.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment or question? Yes, Sandy.
I thought this was a done deal the last time you were before us, and you told us what you thought the outside rates were compared to what your guys could do it in-house for, and I thought it was a done deal. Now, my only curiosity, John, and I gotta be honest, is that back in the budget process, when the fire department was presenting their budget and they suggested that they could save some money by having the DPW do some preventive maintenance, I remember getting a memo from you saying, under no circumstances can we take out any of our time and do any fire department maintenance.
That's correct.
Now, you have a different attitude now.
That memo, I'm sorry.
No matter what the motivation is, I applaud that you have a different attitude now, that you want to do in-house work, you think it can save the borough money, and I'm all for it. I don't think we should waste any more time.
If I can say, that memo was tied in with the whole that I'm going to be losing a mechanic at that time, which there's no way I could even entertain taking on fire trucks and what needs to be done to them if I lose one. I have 43 pieces of equipment, not counting police cars, that I have to work on. So also talking about police cars, I think if anyone should be talking about police cars, maybe the police chief should have been involved from the start of this, because
He's here.
I'm sure he might have some concerns of his own.
Well, what we needed you to do tonight, we just wanted to know what services were provided by the mechanics, and I think you did provide that. Does any other council person have a question? Yeah,
I guess
Johnny, last question.
I guess I misunderstood last time, because last time John was up, I thought the idea was for me to go back and get some solid numbers so that we could actually do a comparison. And that was my takeaway last time we had this meeting. If I was wrong and we shouldn't be looking at this, that's fine.
Can I ask,
You have a comment, John?
I want to ask, Councilman, then, if, did you pick up the phone and ask John, how many times do you service these vehicles a month? I mean, you made assumptions, and that bothers me on the basis. Now, if you called him to get all that information, and he didn't give it to you, that's another thing, but you went out and got numbers based on nothing that we do here.
We asked here, I think it was Ed that asked, you know, can we see what the mechanics, you know, do on a daily basis? We never got it back. So at that point, that's when I just made the assumptions.
But you didn't pick up the phone and call John and
I
ask him.
spoke to John, and John, you know, I'm not gonna go through the whole conversation, but we just don't agree on this issue. We're just not there.
All right, thank you.
Well, right now, we know exactly what the mechanics do. We know what you are proposing that they can do, and that's what we were addressing tonight.
And if I
Only
can just
what
add
you
one
do.
thing,
Go ahead,
the
John.
mechanic budget is the same, I'm sorry, it's not the same, it's $800 and change more than 2005's budget, okay? So I don't know where you're gonna send out these vehicles and that they're gonna keep the budget the same as a 2005 budget. It's unheard of and it's impossible.
Okay.
I have been able to do that.
Well, I know, John, you worked very, very hard, and I thank you very, very much. Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming up, John. Okay? Chief, Assistant Chief, Deputy Chief. Where is our chief? He's sitting right there behind you, huh? Okay. All right? All right.
Question?
You have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, where do we go from? I mean,
Well, the only thing we had on here tonight was to find out exactly what he did. I mean, he said he does the oil changes 12 times a year for the police cars. He does 4 times a year for larger vehicles. He does other repairs. We have all of that. And Johnny needed to have an idea where the costs were.
all right, we're gonna take those numbers back.
And we have the costs, we have the numbers that John has given us. And John, you will provide them to us in writing?
I think we just decided that we're gonna let it go.
All right.
The other council really has an appetite to check it out, unless somebody else has some opinions, but everybody that's spoken has said, let it go.
Yeah, I don't think it's an appetite, I just think it's the logic, the numbers just don't add
Well,
up.
whatever, I'm just
Yeah,
saying. we're not-
you know, it was just a matter of finding out exactly what was being done. Shh, John,
Don't let me do
okay?
it. Mayor,
Okay.
let me do it.
Alphonse?
Just a question, do you need a motion from us to have the fire department's vehicles maintained by DPW?
Hold on a minute, that's not even on
Yeah,
here.
that's not yet.
That's not
Well,
on.
they're here, they're before us.
That's not on tonight, though. Okay?
I-
It's not on tonight for John to maintain the fire department vehicles. That was not even as one of our topics tonight. It was just, what does he do, okay?
Can I just make a
Go
motion,
ahead.
can I just make a motion just to kill this conversation with comparing the outside numbers to what he's doing here and trust our mechanic to do, you know, our head mechanic to do the right thing.
You can make that motion,
I'd like to make that motion.
I second.
okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Me.
Okay, one opposite. Okay. Gentlemen, have a good night. John, would you like to speak?
If I may, Mayor, based on the conversation, I can assume that I have, Bill and I both have the business that run across the street. I can assume that we can move forward with the DPW maintaining our fire trucks.
We have to know what the costs are going to be for your outside and what it's gonna cost. Now, John said he doesn't, I would like to know exactly what happened between January and now that John will be able to, or when we settled the 2011 budget, how he will be able to take care of the vehicles.
Well,
If he was, you know.
like I said to Sandy, that one memo that Sandy mentioned was
Yeah,
brought up when there was topics about removing one of my mechanics, and the fire trucks was absolutely, and it would be today, it would be totally out the window. But I still need money. I would need their budget to be transferred to mine, minus the cost of the labor, which I would have to work it out with Alan, to minus the cost of the labor versus, I don't even know what their mechanic budget is as of this year. I know 2010s and 2009s.
Well, I don't have those numbers either right now, and I don't think any council person has those numbers, and that's something I think we'd have to see. Paul?
Yeah, and going back to when the fire department brought their budgets up, that our conversation was going back to the clothing allowance that we talked about, and then then they came back to us and said we can bring our costs down to DPW. That's an issue that we need to bring up again and talk about, and have a conversation of, okay, you can take the cost here and shift it over here.
Well, that's what I said.
Yeah, all right.
I wouldn't be before you for cost shifting. It's gonna be cost savings. So the savings on the labor is between 9 to 11,000.
Okay.
So if their budget is 20,000 right off the bat, you could surely assume that you're gonna eliminate between $8,000 to $10,000 from labor, because the public works is picking up that labor at $35 an hour.
Gotcha.
Okay. John?
I guess I'd like to see it, because with the other trucks, you handle all the hardware as well, right? All the parts. So the whole, I guess I'd like to see where the fire department feels this shift is gonna be. So your whole mechanic budget goes to DPW in order to, you know, for you, because you're gonna have to buy the parts and all that stuff, so. I guess I'd like to see the whole dynamic before we decide.
There are certain items that obviously they wouldn't be able to do down there. Johnny spoke about the ladder truck. The ladder truck's far too technical with the computer and the hydraulics in the area. We continue to send that to Fire and Safety for its annual PM and annual area test. That will stay the same. The PMs, he's more than qualified to do. The mechanic down here is diesel certified. If there was a problem with the pump itself, that would be required to be done by probably Ruscon, okay? The savings of $112 to $43, $45, whatever it may be, is obviously a considerable savings to the community. You guys asked me to go out and find the best price I could. That's the best price I could. I can't answer to you, and Johnny can't answer to you how much those savings are going to be this year. But as we move forward, you know, next year we start to get a feel for the prices of the parts, which we could order off of the state, off of state contract. We have a better idea of what our savings would be. You guys don't tell me where to send my equipment. You haven't done it yet. But I think the best way to do it would be to send it to Johnny and have him go down there. It's the best cost savings we could make. I have 7 pieces of equipment that I gotta get PM before the end of the year. If I'm gonna send it down to Johnny, I gotta start doing it now, because he's gonna get walloped with leaves in another month and a half. So, you know, I have those planning things to worry about too. If I don't use Johnny, I'm gonna have to send it to an outside contractor again at another $80 an hour for labor. Typical PM without any other problems, just a simple oil change, simple fluids change, is about 8 hours. We spent $17,000 plus last year in PMs. I'm saying just off the cuff, we could cut that to 10,000 easily. I have simple numbers based on a typical PM, and it's close to a 50% savings. Of course, there's no hose changes or belt changes or tires or brakes or anything like that mixed in.
Okay,
But I have to move forward too.
Okay, would they have to be sent out then for belt changes or tires? Of course, they don't.
He can do that.
He can do that.
Sure he can. Right? I mean, that kind of stuff is,
Okay. Anybody have, all right. Any council person have a question, comment? Yeah, you want to make a motion?
Well, I think someone did earlier, but,
Yes, I think so.
but we've gone down here.
Think
and
Alphonse.
I think we make the motion, we give the fire department the ability to send their equipment to the DPW, provided, sounds like John says, he can figure out how to get it scheduled, so they get all preventative maintenance done by the end of the year.
I would second that.
Okay, all in favor?
I
Oh,
don't,
wait a minute.
no, I don't mind that at all, I just wanna make sure that we get the budget, how it's gonna work, because I don't wanna complicate it later on. I mean, during budget season, I don't wanna have, you know, well, the pump truck is with the fire department, and then the rest is with DPW. I'd rather it all be some,
Send us a
give us an
schedule.
idea of how it's gonna
Run
work.
into a situ- You can't transfer that money until November, so
Right.
I don't, you know, that puts him in a bind, and certainly transferring that money to me in November, those trucks cannot be serviced from November
I
to
don't,
December.
I don't need transfer money.
If I,
That's not what I'm talking about, just to be clear.
You just wanna,
I just wanna know.
you wanna know
in
what the
new-
budget is.
In the new budget season, I'd just like to know how you guys envision the dynamic of where you're budgeting that money. That's it.
This PM budget would go straight to him. It wouldn't even be in my budget, it would be in his budget.
Not even for the trucks that go out.
The only one I'd have to account for would be for the ladder trucks, because that's outsourced.
Guys,
I need a repair line item. I need a vehicle repair, which is,
Well, I guess, why don't you guys work that out and then bring it up as a.
yeah, I mean, for this year, I'm not savvy enough, Johnny, to know how to do it this year. I mean, I'm assuming if he has expenses for parts, that would come out of my budget. He, you know,
thank you, John. Okay, Alphonse, last comment. Oh, Sandy, you have a comment too? All right,
I would just,
Alphonse first and then.
I would just suggest for the remainder of the year, the DPW bill the fire department for the labor and the parts. And then next year, we'll just alter the budget as need to be, but for the remainder of the year, just send them a bill. And I think that would satisfy that.
Okay, guys,
Yes.
don't call out because we have some water. Sandy is next to talk. Sandy?
I think Al's on the right, going in the right direction. If John keeps track of the hours and the parts, in November, Alan can do a budget transfer, and that'll solve the problem for 2011.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have a question or comment? Okay. Then you say it. Okay. All right. Thank you for coming up. Just needing numbers, that's it. Okay, let's go. I'd like a motion on the lease agreement with Temple Alva Cologne. They have reduced the amount of the lease from 22.5 to 18,000 for the next 2 years.